right, welcome to another episode of the Cherrypicker Podcast. I'm your host, CJ Tefano. We have another exciting episode for you all today. This time we're sitting down with Greg Russell, VP of Talent Acquisition at Cover Genius. So Cover Genius is the world's leading embedded insurance technology platform that's reinventing one of the oldest and most complex industries through world-class technology. They're doing something really exciting. Basically, the platform is enabling its partners and customers to embed multiple lines of insurance and other forms of protection, and they're revolutionizing the industry. So really exciting stuff. Welcome, Greg. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, CJ. I really appreciate it.
No, great to have you. Looking forward to learning more about Cover Genius and learning about your company culture and your time that you spent there and growing the team. So tell me a little bit about your time there, your role, and what's going on at Cover Genius.
Yeah, so I've been here about 18 months now. We got a team of seven recruiters now, coordinator. We're about a 600-person company. And we're doing, we've done just over 200, about 210 hires this fiscal year. We still got a couple months left. We're really rolling at the moment. We've done 30 hires in March and 38 in April. So we're really knocking it out of the park at the moment. I'm loving my time here. Got a great team, a very senior team, and just really enjoying it. We got a great process.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I guess mixture of, is it technical talent, corporate talent? How would you break it down? What type of people are you currently tracking into to Cover Genius at the moment?
Yeah, so a real mix. We've got a pretty big tech team, tech and product, what we call our R&D team, so technology and product, and we're doing quite a bit of hiring there. We've got 2 recruiters dedicated to those roles. Doing a lot of kind of, what I consider commercial core business hiring. So a bunch on the finance side, a bunch on the go-to-market side at the moment. We obviously hire insurance folks, and those are some of our most challenging roles. It's a pretty interesting world. We're in that world. We're hiring folks who, they need to have the experience and knowledge in this kind of stodgy old industry. And also the risk tolerance to come into a tech company. So it's an interesting mix because those things don't always go together.
Yeah.
And then we hire quite a large number of kind of customer facing support and claims folks. So kind of 3 major buckets there.
Nice. So you seem like you got your hands full right now. It's a busy time over there, making a lot of hires, which is great. Tell me a little bit about it. Is it remote? Is it in office? Is it hybrid? What's your current work environment right now?
So we're kind of mostly hybrid. It was interesting during the pandemic. I think we leaned, as a lot of companies did, we leaned very heavily into remote. We got very, very distributed. When I joined 18 months ago, we had people in 35 U.S. states and probably as many countries. And we've kind of pruned that back a little bit. We've kind of gravitated a bit more towards our offices now. And so mostly hybrid is what we're hiring today. We've got offices in Sydney, San Francisco, Vancouver, New York, London, Amsterdam. And we've got a large presence in Montevideo, Uruguay, without a physical office just yet, but kind of watch this space on that. We most of our roles we are hiring in or around one of those offices. The expectation is kind of 3 days a week, usually Monday, Tuesday, Friday kind of thing. But depending on location and depending on team, some teams are fully remote.
Awesome. So hybrid environment, obviously global offices. How would you describe like the culture when you're in the office, or is there a way that the other offices connect with each other? Is there either a meetup, or is there any initiatives that keep them in touch with each other, or is it very collaborative? Like, talk to us a little bit about what it's like remotely or in office.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll talk a little bit about the culture first, and then I'll talk about kind of how that works, with our distributed nature. The culture, I'd say, at Cover Genius is rooted in 2 main concepts. So trust and commitment to transforming this traditional industry, right? And so first, I like to describe it as we hire grownups, right? We hire adults and we treat them as such. And so this means we default to giving lots of autonomy and expecting a high degree of urgency and accountability to get the job done in return. So it's, the way I kind of think about it is, with great autonomy comes great responsibility, right? So we trust you to get your stuff done. You got to get your stuff done. It's not the kind of culture where anybody's sitting over your shoulder, prescribing what you're doing in most roles, right? It's kind of defined. The culture, I'd say, is defined by one of our core operating principles, which is we create magic. We make magic, which is about turning this archaic industry into the extraordinary, right? And not just the archaic industry, but just anything, right? It's really kind of thinking about how do we make something extraordinary. And so we're in the insurance industry. We do offer other forms of protection as well, but really, when you think about it, kind of the easy way to think about it is the umbrella of the insurance industry. It's one of the world's oldest industries. And we pride ourselves on making hard things simple, right? This is a super old industry, and there's a lot of really old entrenched ways of doing things. And we pride ourselves in looking at every one of those ways and thinking about, is this movable? Is this changeable? How can we do this better? How can we apply technology to this? And so we're really focused on making hard things simple and building world first, world leading products. And this requires our people to be bold, authentic, purposeful, inspired. Those are all things, those are all kind of key elements of our culture. And finally, we're really, really customer centric. And so this, I think, this applies not just to the policyholders who are ultimately the customer, right? But also to our partners who are kind of our customer, right? Like the ultimate policyholder and end user is our partner's customer. But the partner is also our client, right? And every single job candidate, I really apply this all the way to the candidate, right? So that customer centricity. And so that's kind of an overview of the culture, I'd say. And then when it comes to how that plays out in terms of the offices, look, every office is unique. Of course, the culture in the office in Amsterdam is different than the one in Sydney, which is different than the one here in San Francisco. And different than what we've got in Montevideo, Of course, that's true. And so we want to make room for that. We do a lot of things at the local level to celebrate and to encourage the growth of those cultures. So for instance, we're putting together a team here in San Francisco at the moment to run the world-renowned Beta Breakers next weekend together. And that's something that's going to be sponsored by the company. Just like, in Sydney, the City to Surf, that race, and there's other events in other locations that we get behind as a company. And then, at the same time, it's really important to have a cohesive, company culture across geographies, right? And so we're constantly looking for ways to do that. We've got, obviously all hands meetings like any company does, but we do Ask Me Anythings. We do You Should Know sessions. These are on a regular basis. And so there's always pretty much a constant drumbeat of opportunities for people to be online with each other, learning about what's going on with the company. There are kind of company-wide initiatives. So, yes, we'll run a race here in San Francisco. We'll do a San Francisco happy hour or trivia night or whatever that is, right? But also, we're always looking for opportunities to do, something company-wide, whether that's like a health and wellness thing, like a push-up challenge or a step counting thing or, whatever that is. And then we look for ways to get together, and so we take the company, every 12 to 18 months, we try and take the company away, the whole company. We're about 600 person company. Take the whole company away together. So 18 months ago, we went to Thailand as a company. Wow. Yeah. And yeah. And we're looking forward to, in just about a month here, we're going to be going to Lisbon all together.
Oh, wow.
And so
that's really cool. So it's very unique that I think you're probably the first guest I've spoken to that has try to take their entire company to a overseas location to support well-being. And obviously you guys are hybrid. So you're supporting work-life balance. Obviously you're trying to innovate a legacy old industry, just like we are, in the recruiting space. So
that's right.
There's a lot of similarities. And I think it's a big mountain to climb, especially when everybody's used to doing the same thing for years, the same way. And now we're embarking on this AI era where there's automation and it's really changing the game on the employee experience, the candidate experience, and how people are getting interviewed and hired. So obviously you touched upon some of the key qualities. You touched upon a lot of what makes you guys unique. Tell us about the actual hiring process itself, and how do you ensure a positive candidate experience during that hiring process? So give us a little insight on how you guys go about this? 'Cause I remember I remember talking to you and before you had mentioned there's this unique process that you guys work through when you're evaluating talent. I would love to share that with our audience.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I'll start by saying I think it's not rocket science what we're doing. I don't think I don't think it's so unique, but and I always like to say, I tell my boss this all the time, and I've heard her say it to other folks too. Hiring is it's not rocket science, but it's about doing a whole bunch of small things well, right? And I like to say there's 48 different things that you have to do well, right, to have a good process. And so there's a few things. So I think the difference for us is we've really thoroughly and intentionally designed a hiring process. And so we really espouse the philosophy that hiring a new team member is a project, right? And it should be treated just like any other project in the company. It's a pretty each one is actually a pretty meaty project when you think about it. Let's say our average employee makes 100 and I don't know the exact number, but let's just say somebody makes 150K, right? That represents 180 200K in annual OpEx spend, right? And hopefully that's spend that you're going to now incur for several years for that person. And so we should be treating that as a project, and we should be treating it with the same rigor as any other major business initiative, right? And so we really try and hold that philosophy, and we've really focused on quality of hire over speed and efficiency, right? We really want to get those hires right. And so probably the most unique aspect, and I think what you're really referencing from our previous conversation is we do what we call the leadership and values interview, right? So it's a final round interview. So it's separate from the main process. So the main process is all about getting signal on the functional side. So is this person a good qualified recruiter, software engineer, marketer, product manager, whatever that is, right? Functionally, do they have the chops? Can they do the job? Do they have the pieces that we need right now in the team functionally, right? So we get through that. Once there's a decision to hire on that, then the person goes through the leadership and values interview. And so we've got this program that's dedicated solely to assessing a candidate's cultural and working style alignment, alignment to our values, our principles, our mission, and our highly autonomous environment, right? And so we've created a pool of interviewers from around the company, from all different departments, all different levels can be involved in this. So there's VPs and C-level people that do this interview. There are S2 people on the support team that do this interview. And there's a few rules around it. So one is that interviewer cannot come from the same team that's hiring. We want to create some separation. If you're like urgently trying to hire a product person and you just need this butt in this seat so badly, I don't want there to be any pressure on the interviewer to say, I'm not sure about this candidate. I don't think this candidate's a really good alignment here, but I want to pass them anyway because my boss is breathing down my neck. We don't want that, so we've separated it. And that interviewer, no matter what level they're at, they've got veto power over the hiring decision. And so it's not in a vacuum. It's not like they just say veto and that's it, right? Like if they're a no, it comes to me. I review the interview. I may talk to the interviewer. We might look at it together. We might have them do a second LNV. We might go get a second opinion somewhere. But ultimately, we wind up vetoing about the latest numbers are about 18% of all candidates that come through don't make it through this step. And so we really, really take this very seriously. We take our culture really seriously, right? And so this process really ensures that new geniuses are deeply aligned with our culture from day one. And then, also just on the hiring process, we're really starting to lean into AI. We've got a native AI ATS called Kula, which really helps support quality of hire. It's got a built-in interview recorder and transcriber, so we can go back and watch those interviews. Like I said, with the LNV, it's very helpful sometimes. Searchable transcript, et cetera, et cetera. So, we really I think the foundation is kind of, again, treating people like adults, creating a great candidate experience. And I can talk a bit about that as well, but I'll pause there so so I'm not just kind of running on too long. But happy to dive into candidate experience as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great insight. Very refreshing. I think people undervalue cultural evaluation and they kind of just glance over it. People are your biggest investment in your organization. Is people, process, and product. I think Marcus Lemonis used to say that on The Profit, that show. That
Hmm.
always stuck with me. And like honestly, like now with AI, more importantly, we still need humans to do even more higher value tasks, and we can't just have AI complete everything for us, but we still need these strong minds that interact in a team environment, that solve problems together. And culture is really, really important. So like you're going about it from, I think in a very genius way, for lack of a better word. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the candidate experience, as you mentioned. I would love to learn more. I think I'm sure our audience wants to know more about, what innovative ways you're creating a positive candidate experience for prospective hires.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's so interesting. I don't think of anything that we do on the candidate experience side as innovative necessarily. And I've thought this for a long time. It's so interesting. For years in this role in different companies, it's just always shocked me, to be honest. I'm dumbfounded sometimes. Kind of how companies approach the candidate experience, or really how they don't approach it.
Hmm.
And so I don't think it needs to be there. You don't need to do anything special. You just need to do the basics really well, right? Like just approach the candidate with respect, and treat them like a grown up, right? And so our
Absolutely.
approach, so the first thing is the ethos that a candidate should leave every single interaction with Cover Genius wanting to work with us even more than before, regardless of the outcome, right? So we could have an interview and it could be clear after 3 minutes that, hey, this isn't going to be a match on either their side or our side. We might come to that conclusion. We still want them walking away from that going, wow, really love these guys. I think this would be a great place to work. I'd love to be there one day, right? And so that's number one. And we really view it as hiring's like a marriage, and so this is a massive decision. It's a massive life decision. It's important for the company, obviously, like I talked about with that OpEx spend, but it's hugely important decision for the candidate. I mean, it's right up there with your big life decisions, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, it's maybe not quite on the level of a real marriage or partnership with romantic partnership, or maybe where to live or buying a house, but it's not far behind a couple of those things. You're making a decision about where am I going to go and who am I going to spend half of my waking hours with for the next N years,
You
right?
spend more time with your coworkers sometimes than your own family, and that was one thing that I think I realized over the years is I've seen these people more than some of my own family, even though I live in the same house or I've lived separately and see my parents every other
That's
week
right.
or whatever, every once a month. You're spending 8 hours a day, multiple days a week, sometimes a weekend, once in a blue moon.
Right.
Depends on the organization. So yeah, this is one of the most important decisions. And then when you're dealing with people, even from our side, from the recruiting side, these are really important decisions for them to
Right.
decide where they want to take their life. And
That's right.
they're trusting you with helping them make that decision. So
That's right.
you're going about it the right, that's 100% the correct way to go about hiring somebody, because you want to make sure it's a mutual fit for both of you, and
That's right.
they have to fit into your culture so they can be a long-term solution versus this churn. You don't want to have this
Yeah.
turnover because you have to do this rigorous process over and over and over again, which you probably don't have to do because you do this. That's the whole
That's right.
point. Do it now. So there's less of
That's
this
right.
this turnover because of this.
That's right. Measure twice, cut once, that kind of thing, right? And I think it's signal. I always talk about signal. I do trainings here, for hiring managers and interviewers and the L&V interviews, et cetera. And I always talk about signal. Hiring, as a hiring manager, you need signal. You own the decision. You're the project owner, but you need the signal to make a good decision, right? And so that's why we run a thorough process. But then, flip it around. The candidate needs signal too, and so we always make sure that we're leaving time for questions every round. Do you have any questions? Oh, hey, I don't know the answer to that. I will find someone who does know the answer to that. We follow up on every question that a candidate asks us. And then we also we follow up with everyone. So this is the thing that always amazes me is how many companies don't get back to candidates. You see it all the time. You look at your LinkedIn feed. There's stories in there every day, right, about candidates being ghosted. That's just unfathomable to me, and it's inexcusable, right? Especially these days. What does it take to get back to a candidate? A click, 2 clicks. So it's crazy to me when companies don't do this. And so we have a rule. I jokingly call it everyone gets rejected. Of course, not everyone gets rejected. Few people get hired, right?
Yeah,
But the idea is we follow up with everyone, right? We close the loop with every unsuccessful candidate,
that's great.
And it's personalized to the stage. So if it's we've reviewed your resume and we're not going to talk to you, okay, great. You're getting a form email, but you're getting an email. If you've come in to talk to us or you've made it deep into the process, the recruiter is giving you a call and they're going to tell you live, that you didn't make it. They're going to offer you feedback if you'd like to hear feedback. Not all candidates want that feedback. And I've had pushback sometimes from some recruiters saying, hey, this new generation, they don't want me to call them to reject them, right? And I get that. So we can be flexible on that. But also, I just think, having the opportunity to speak to someone live is really important.
Absolutely. In a day in a world that we live in now with automation, with one click, you could have at least a template at bare minimum to say, hey, we appreciate you taking the time, because they're taking time out of their schedule to meet with you. You're taking time out of your schedule to meet with them. But from a courtesy or from a courting perspective, they took the time to fill out whether it was an application or whatever. The least that the most employers can do is just send an automated no thank you or we appreciate your time. And at least common courtesy. And you'll be surprised how many companies don't do that. I mean, obviously we're battling a world where there's a lot of AI applying and, tons of applicants coming through job ads. And I'm sure that people are getting peppered in emails, inboxes, so they may miss it, but it's still a common courtesy. I think that you're going about it. That's amazing. Yeah. And Greg, we appreciate this. Really great insight. Thank you for joining us today. If you're looking to learn more about Cover Genius, you can head over to their website. You can follow them on LinkedIn. They'll be on our platform. They'll be searching for talent. We do appreciate everybody's time. If you like this conversation, you can like and subscribe below, and hope you can join us for another episode here on Cherrypicker Podcast. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, CJ. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.